to another edition of the AList Podcast. Hey, Kwani, we've made it past day number 1, and we're back.
For some reason, they gave us a second episode. That's crazy.
Look, man, I was forget about 10-day contracts. I was more like a 24-hour type contract. Please let them get us on for another show. As you can see, Kwani, well, the folks out there can't see, but I've got on my Christmas festive outfit here. Got this this red and white jacket on. Now, see, last year this time, I would wear this and I looked more like one of those peppermint gumballs.
Okay.
But after dropping a couple pounds, I look more like a peppermint stick. So I'm feeling more peppermint sticky-ish today.
All right, Sherrod with the glow up.
I'm trying to slim it down and blow up at the same time. And speaking of blow up, AList Podcast is available.
It is. And make sure you subscribe. We're on Spotify. We're on iTunes. We're even on YouTube. But you need to click that subscribe button. Listen to it, of course. And, of course, also give us a review, because then we can get to our 3rd episode. And that's the goal.
Exactly, which is exactly what we want to do. And also special shout out to BetOnline AG for giving us the support that we need to keep on keeping on. So what you got, Kwani? What do you think about today? What are we going to talk about?
I mean, I'm just excited for the NBA season. We talked about it in the first episode with Mark Spears. We're going to have Abby on later to give us her perspective on the Celtics. I'm excited for some basketball.
I'm excited about basketball, but you know what? When I think about this season, I can't really start until I acknowledge where we finished. And where we finished was in the bubble with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the Lakers bringing home championship number 17, which puts them in a tie with the Celtics for all-time championships. Don't think for a minute that the Celtics are not just a little bit salty about that fact.
Especially when the Celtics should have been playing the Lakers in that game, and that would have actually made for some real competition there.
Real talk right there. Now, let me ask you this. I mean, we look at some of the moves that the Lakers have made. I mean, obviously you've got AD, you got LeBron. They've added some pieces. Dennis Schroeder. They've added another couple nice players to the mix. Repeat.
I'm not counting them out, obviously. As Mark Spears said in the last episode, he says that this Lakers team could beat the bubble team in a heartbeat. But I'm still looking to the East with hope, in the sense that I don't want to just see LeBron dominate again. I would love to see another team come out of the West and give us a little more competition. Every conference that LeBron is in, we're always like, oh, they got it. I'm tired of that. I want to see a conference where you don't know who's going to be up the year that we're looking at.
Listen, I have been singing just carrying the banner that this is the year that LeBron is going to fall down. This is the year that look, I'm done out of that game. I retired that banner. It will not pop or surface again. The Lakers are going to win another title. The only thing that's going to keep them from repeating as champions is if someone gets hurt. And that someone better be named LeBron James. Because if he's healthy, they're going to win. They are better than they were a year ago when they won the title. And they are still, on paper, the best team in the NBA. When you look at the talent they have at the top shelf, you look at that below talent that's the notch below that, and then you look at the cookies they got on the bottom shelf. Right. They are loaded, and I do believe that they're going to repeat as champions, and it pains the hell out of me to say that,
because I like a bunch of haters.
Exactly, it pains me to say that, but that's the reality of it. I mean, They're that good. One team that I know feels that maybe we got a shot to knock the Lakers off is the Milwaukee Bucks, and you've got the 2-time MVP and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Mm-hmm. You've had the best record in the NBA each of the last 2 years. Did not get to the NBA Finals either year. Giannis has signed up long-term deal. He's not going anywhere for a long, long time. They seem poised to be a contender again, but are you buying that? Are you buying that this Milwaukee team is the best team in the East? Forget about the Lakers for a second. Are they the best team in the East?
I'm definitely not giving them the best team in the East. I think when you look at Giannis re-upping with the Milwaukee Bucks and kind of showing the city that he's committed to winning, that's a good sign for Bucks fans. But I mean, him alone, I don't know. I'm not really giving him that much stock in the Bucks to really I don't know. I just don't see them pulling out of the East. When you look at all of the talent that you see on the East, I can't just be like, oh, it's a guarantee with Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the one thing, and I'm gonna take a shout out to my guy Michael Holley on this one. The Bucks head coach, Bud, has not been that good. He's had some really good. You look at his track record. I mean, he's had some really good teams that had amazing records, and they don't get it done in the playoffs. People, give Doc Rivers a lot of grief because he gives up 3-1 leads. Bud has teams that are the favorites that don't even get 3-1 leads to give up. Right. So I think coaching is an issue that Milwaukee at some point they're going to have to address because they have enough talent to compete, and they find ways to win enough games. But there's a disconnect between them getting to the postseason and them getting through the postseason. And when you start looking at all the different factors and in particulars of that, coaching has to come into play. I know the game is played by the players, but coaches, they have a role. And I think one of the questions that a lot of people are asking is, when you talk about players and the role of coaches, who's going to be coaching James Harden this season? Because right now, Steven Silas has that job in Houston, and he's going to be doing a great job at it. But will James be in Houston? What do you think? I mean, can they move? Do you think they'll be able to move him, or do you think he's going to be stuck in Houston, which is not a bad place to be stuck in, but that's another story.
That's another part of this season that I really am looking forward to. Obviously, James doesn't want to be there, so it comes down to, do you want to just have a disgruntled player on the bench who may not be willing to perform at his best capability just because he doesn't want to be there? Or will you trade him away and get some pieces that will not only re-up your roster, but I know it ends up looking like a win-win, and front offices don't really want other teams to win in that sense. But I never understood the point of having a disgruntled Anthony Davis, for example, with the Pelicans, and he's sitting there and you're not using them to their capability. I say just let him go peacefully, find a way to get some pieces for him, and have a decent season at least.
But the problem that Houston's going through, and it's what all teams go through when this happens, players flap their gums too damn much.
That's true.
Think about it.
Their agents do. Their agents do.
If you're in a relationship and you don't want to be in that relationship anymore, you are going to tell the entire world you don't want to be in that relationship instead of dealing with that partner. Right. And just letting them know, say, hey, maybe we should part ways, but let's just keep this between us. We part ways, and then we go do our thing. Instead, they want to tell the partner, they want to tell partner's brother, they want to tell Kiki, they want to tell Sean, they want to tell Jamal, they want to tell Karen, they want to tell everyone.
And at the end of the day, and then you're in a bigger mess than when you started, and you're still stuck in that relationship.
Exactly.
What's the point of that?
Exactly. I mean, to me, if there's anything you learned about Anthony Davis, is there anything you've learned about guys who want out of situations? Keep your mouth shut and work with the people who can get you out.
Exactly.
Get you out. And the Celtics, their name has been brought up as a possible destination for James Harden, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I know the Celtics are obviously looking to upgrade, but the one thing, and I wanted to talk to you about this before we get into our guest speaker, but the Celtics under Brad Stevens and Danny, they really have built a winning culture. Yes. There's no doubt about it. You look at the wins that they've been rack up under Brad's tenure, they rank among the best teams in the NBA in that regard. But do they have a championship winning culture? Because I think there is a difference between the two. I would say they don't. And I think as tempting as adding a James Harden type player to the mix would, I think, on the surface look like you're trying to create a championship winning culture, I think the credits that you get with a move like that will be offset and then some by the debits, because James is a lot. I mean, he's bringing more than just that damn beard to the building. I mean, he got some serious baggage beyond that beard and the hair products that beard needs to keep it nice and whatever the hell he thinks it is right now.
So with that being said, though, what do you think, or who do you think could contribute to the Celtics having a winning culture?
You're gonna laugh at this, or you may not.
Okay.
I think they need to. I think just like they went back in the past to add a guy like Evan Turner to the staff, I think they need to take a look, a blast from the past, in order to add to their roster. The guy that I'm going to keep. Would you say
Isaiah Thomas?
No, I love Isaiah.
I was trying to
ride or die with him. Thanks. Shout out to Isaiah Thomas for that brink stroke line. That really was a major get for me. I appreciate you for that. Always. No, I'm talking about our good friend Al Horford. And here's why.
I'm not laughing at that.
Here's why. Oh, yeah. You got that $28.5 million trade exception that you got from the Gordon Hayward deal. Al makes about 27, and his contract decreases in overall value over the last couple of years. And each of those years has a lowered buyout amount, so that even though he maybe owed like another 50, 60 million over the last couple of years, you could theoretically get from under that for like maybe 14, 15 million if things don't work out, if you make a deal for him. And where he's at now in Oklahoma City, look, anyone on their damn roster is up to be traded. I mean, they treating players and draft picks like Pokemon cards. They just like, give me some, I need them. That's how they are. And they would love to have a $28.5 million trade exception at their disposal. And the Celtics, again, they've got a year to do this. And obviously they've added Tristan Thompson. You got Daniel Tice back. You're hoping Robert Williams, can finally, play like the guy that they think he is. But if you add a guy like Al Horford to the mix, and the only thing that costs you is a trade exception that you got from a deal with Gordon Hayward, who was going to leave you anyway, I think that gives you the potential to make an even deeper playoff run and potentially be a championship caliber squad. That's my theory on that.
I'm definitely not laughing at it, though, because one, people talk about how the Celtics need more of a presence in the post. Obviously, Al will bring that. But also, another thing that we always talk about is just the leadership aspect. He's obviously an NBA vet. And also the way that he had led the team when he was in Boston, they respect him, if not fear him, to the point where he's able to get that roster, that locker room even, just gathered together, unified, whether that's on and off the court. So again, we always talk about what can they do on the floor, but I think the locker room presence is something that's really big. And like you said, the Celtics could use more veteran, I think, leadership experience there for sure.
It's so funny, Kwani, that you talk about veteran leadership,
I know,
locker room.
What am I talking about?
I want to get your take on your boy, Kyrie Irving.
He's my boy.
We saw him after the Sage, moment he had before the game, which I thought was really cool. Actually, I actually approve of that Kyrie action. I thought that was very cool, showing respect and homage to his Native American roots. Love that part about Kyrie. When he played, if I'm a Celtics fan, I did not like that.
Obviously,
he looked like 25 a night Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
And with the Celtics playing them early in the season on Christmas Day, what do you think that game against Brooklyn is going to look like? And how big of an impact do you think Kyrie is going to have, not only on that game, but on the next season and their chances of winning a championship?
And for one, he called him my boy because we're both from Jersey. Kyrie grew up in West Orange. I grew up in Orange. So
I'm so glad you put a receipt on that.
Yeah,
I'm glad you put a receipt on that.
I had to make sure it was known because I'm always repping Jersey no matter what.
Put a receipt on it.
But when you talk about that Christmas Day game, that is Christmas in all of its extremities. Like, you don't need presents, you don't need hot chocolate, you just need that game, because I think anyone that's a Celtics fan is obviously looking forward to that. Even though the preseason game wasn't what they expected,
they got smashed.
They did. It was not what Celtics fans want, but obviously I think players do still approach the preseason, whether they want to admit it or not, with that preseason mentality. But when you have a Christmas Day game, you're having that national audience. I think the Celtics are going to bring it. It's going to be way more fun than what we saw in the preseason. And I think, I don't know, I'm feeling some players ducking on each other in this one.
Oh, there's going to be some facials handed out.
Mm-hmm. I want the posters.
I'm all about the
posters. Christmas posters.
All about the Christmas Day posters. And I'm also all about our first guest today. We've got the incomparable Abby Chen. Looking forward to this for a while. Abby, former coworker of mine at NBC Boston, as well as and Kwani, I was bringing you to the party too. I was bringing you in too.
It took too long.
I know, right? Abby, welcome to the AList Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm your second guest, right? Or have you done a bunch more? I feel so special.
Yes, you're the second.
Number two,
the first woman though. So that
on the depth chart, number one in our hearts, Abby Chen. And wanted to just kind of jump right into things with you, Abby. Now, obviously, this was an off season, unlike most off seasons that we've had around here in a long, long time. And there was a movement that was going on in Boston. And I guess the easiest way to describe it is the Abby Chin movement. When fans reached out to you, Abby, showing their support for you, just take us through a little bit what that meant to you to get that type of love.
Oh my gosh, it meant so much. It was so completely unexpected. I think Sherrod, you and I got the same call on the same day, and it was heartbreaking. I mean, the reality is, I had my dream job. I had my dream job for 7 seasons, and even though that season wasn't over, the job was being taken away. And so just kind of dealing with the mental reality of that was really hard. And then to see the support. So the news actually broke the day after that. And so I had a pretty down day. I think it was a Monday, Stroud, wasn't it, that we found out?
I think so.
The Tuesday, the news broke. And then so to see that response on social media, it lifted me so much. It buoyed my spirits, and it took me to a different place. And then it also got to a point where it was too much. It was too emotional because I understood that this decision was not going to be changed. And so to see so many people support me in that way, it meant the world to me. But then it was also, I can't give them anything. I can't do anything for them. This is the reality. This is something that I mentally need to come to terms with and come to grips with. Mm-hmm. And so it was incredible. And it was really cool. So many people texted me like, I signed the petition. And that was really nice to hear and see. And so it was wonderful. And then to see the response now that I'm coming back was incredible. Just how unbelievably positive it's been. It means the world to me and to my family. I mean, my husband seeing it has just been great, and my parents as well.
Yeah.
The kids have no idea what's going on. Mabel and Silas could not care less. They were like, "Why are you crying, Mom?" I was like, "A lot's happening." She's like, yeah. "Can you go get the spaghetti? Because I'm hungry."
But you do mention that mental health aspect that I think a lot of people don't understand is important, no matter what job you're in. What was that process like for you? Not going into too much depth, but trying to figure out what your next steps could possibly be.
Kwani Sherrod will tell you. I'm an open book. You can ask me anything. I think I was pretty paralyzed initially. Finding that out, and then like I mentioned, we wanted to finish the season. I wanted to finish the season strong, and not necessarily for myself, but also just to complete that process, to be able to close that chapter. Like I said, it was my dream job, and I tried really hard not to ever take that for granted. And so it wasn't until the beginning of October that I really started wrapping my mind around it. And then honestly, God knows if I was doing some stuff for the news side of NBC 10 with Kwani, and not with Kwani, but Kwani works at NBC 10. And so I felt like that was always floating out there. And then October 9th came and there was nothing. And so I did. It was, I think I was in denial up until that point. I went to the living room. So that was a Friday. I went to the living room on Saturday, and I told my husband, I was like, we got to get out. I've been in this house for too long. I'm just going to take the kids. I'm going to drive to Ohio. And which is where my family was at the time. And my husband was like, no, you cannot drive 13 hours by yourself with 2 small children in the car. That is not rational. And so it took me a few hours to get there. I understood. Eventually I did get to take some time off. We did a road trip and saw family that we haven't seen in a year, which I think, makes all of this that much harder to not have that support. And then I think that kind of just getting away from here and being able to focus on the family kind of gave me the strength and the footing to kind of dive back into that. So I was exploring every option, whether it was going into news and reporting that, or trying to figure out more of a writing direction. I was open to any and everything. And I think that that's one of the best pieces of advice. It's actually the best piece of advice that I got through this process. And I actually reconnected with Nako Funayama, who worked for NESN and the Bruins broadcast. And just speaking with her, she was like, talk to everybody. You don't know what could happen, what opportunities could open up, or if whomever, maybe not now, but down the road, they're like, oh yeah, Abby's around. She can do something. And she said that's a big part of how she got the Revs job. A big part of this, though, is that I am at a point in my life where we're here. We're in Boston. I love this neighborhood. We live in Arlington. I don't want to give too much away, but my daughter loves her school. We have really good friends. We've built a great community here, and my husband has a good job. And so, we weren't leaving. And so I think that kind of narrowed my focus, which was a good thing, because the hope was to stay in Boston. And so then, and you guys can bring this up if you want, but then when Kyle chose to leave, I jumped at the opportunity and let all the powers that be know that I was absolutely interested in the position, and I believe that I can do a good job, and I have done it before, and I just wanted the opportunity.
Now, with that new job, which is really not really a new job because you kind of did that before at various times.
Yes.
What has that been like, kind of being the full-time pre and post game host for the Celtics show?
I don't know yet. We've had 2 shows and they were all preseason. So, I'm not sure how seriously. I'm kidding. We take everything very seriously, but you can't read too much into that. And so I am really excited. Everyone, when I was up for the opportunity, speaking with my producer on the games, his name is Paul Lucy, and he was like, Abby, there are so many games. They're just like, they keep coming. And that excites me. I love that. Sherrod, you know that. And we've been on the road, and I really enjoy the pace of the NBA, and I like that this is picking up. And one cool thing about this job, and for better or for worse, it's better for me at the point that I'm at, that there is no travel right now. And so, typically on a game day, I am going to shoot around for 3 hours, and then I go home, I study, prepare, get ready, and then you're at the arena for 8 hours after that. And so those are long days. And this job allows me to be at home a little bit more with the kids during the day. We do have help, and then focus on the game at night. And I think that that's really exciting. And I'm excited about the cast of characters that we're going to have. Big Perk is going to be with us as much as possible, and he is amazing. I love him so much, and his personality and his fire, and the fact that he has no filter. It's wonderful. Scal, sometimes I wish would have more of a filter, but but then and Chris Mannix, who I've worked with, and that's the really cool part about it, is that these are people who I have relationships that I have spent time with and built up rapport with. And so I'm excited to see how that develops and where that goes.
It must be exciting to start a new job and already know your coworkers.
Yeah. The studio, very familiar.
Right. But obviously the NBA season tips off on Tuesday, and the biggest storyline is the Celtics and how they will play this season. What are you looking most forward to from the Celtics squad?
I don't know if they're the biggest story, Kwani. I like.
Well, they're one of the bigger Eastern Conference stories.
Well, KD looked pretty good the other night. I am, like I think almost everyone in Celtics Nation, am most excited to see what Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown do with this opportunity. There is no denying, no one else is trying to take that spotlight from them. This is their team. This is their moment. I am excited to see them seize that, to find out what that looks like, and to see where they can lead this team. And I know that there are going to be some growing pains. And I think that that is another benefit of having so many games going up. Number one, that they're young and they're going to be able to play. And I want to see them learn and grow and see how they can develop now that they know they are the men, the guys.
Yeah. And I guess along those lines, Abby, because, we've seen them from their day one when they came to Boston to where they are now. And I always felt as though we have these expectations for them, and they would either dramatically exceed them or significantly underperform versus those expectations. And I don't know why that is. I mean, because it's been like that for Jaylen from day one. I mean, he went from a guy that people didn't really think the Celtics should draft. I mean, how many guys drafted that high get booed? Which it just doesn't happen. And then you got Tatum, who had a great rookie season, but then he was okay, the second year, but didn't make that great leap that people thought he would make. And so now it's like, maybe he's not as good as we thought. And then he becomes an all-star. It's like, okay, maybe he's a top 10 player. What do you think those guys, what's realistic? What should we realistically expect from them? I mean, because both of those guys are still young, but they have been in the league for a while and they've done some things.
And they've experienced a lot. Brad Stevens talks about it all the time, how much they have been through in their short NBA careers. And Sherrod, as you go through everything, it all seems so circumstantial. You talk about Jayson Tatum and that second year not making that leap. We all remember why, and his name rhymes with Shmyri. No one was themselves or reached the height, the peak of themselves in that season. And so I really do. I throw that away. And I hope that Jayson took the lessons of that and those experiences playing next to a guy like Kyrie, and that allowed him to catapult himself into what he was next season, or the next season, which was last season. I'm terrible with dates, by the way, so I'm trying to remember.
We all are this time of year.
It's all a blur.
Yeah.
Well, the NBA calendar in general.
Right.
And then Sherrod, you talk about exceeding expectations. You and I were with them in 2017 on that incredible playoff run.
Amazing.
With Kyrie, no Gordon Hayward. And it seemed like those two particularly thrived with their backs against the wall. No matter the situation, they came through. And if it wasn't one, it was the other. And it was so incredible to watch. And then, like you mentioned, in the Game 7, both came up completely flat and obviously overwhelmed and overcome by the power that is LeBron James. And so, and then, like you said, with Jaylen and everything that he's been through that next season, dealing with Kyrie, and that he came in with such high expectations. I mean, Danny Ainge tells the story that he saw Jaylen in the meal room, and Jaylen was like, "Do you think we're better than the 86 Celtics?" And Danny was like, "No, I don't." So Jaylen went into that season with such high expectations, and then to just have that ripped away. I think it was really cool to see him mature and be able to deal with that and actually, find his role in that season. And so I guess to answer your question, Sherrod, the long-winded way, is that I will never doubt those two. I have faith that they will figure it out. And I believe that Jayson Tatum is one day going to be an MVP in this league, whether that's this season or next. And Scal talks about it all the time. At this point where he is and how good he is, it's incremental. It's percentage points that he has to get better. So it's better shot selection, better passes, more pinpoint passes. It's so small. And I believe that he can get there. And then Jaylen Brown, as we saw in the preseason, I think that's one of the most disappointing things is you want to see him hit the ground running with this new role, with this new added responsibility. And I think that he will get there. I think that he is one of the smartest people, let alone players, that I know. It may take him some time. And I know like his ball handling and decision making, those are things that he wants to improve upon. And so I think he will.
You mentioned Jaylen and Jayson having to step up, but I think a lot of times, as you mentioned with Kyrie, we think that just because someone's a star, that they have to be the leader. So looking at the roster that the Celtics have this year, who do you think should emerge as a leader of this team?
I think Marcus Smart is the default leader, and we know the heart and soul, and he is the guy who's in there holding people accountable. I think that that's something that has been cool to see in the development of Jaylen Brown in last season, in the bubble, standing up to Marcus after the 2 losses, and then inside that locker room. And also he was the only one, if you remember, who actually stood up to Kyrie and told him, don't put this all on us. We are not the only ones here. And so I think that's been good to see. You, of course, want to see Jayson Tatum continue to be more vocal. And then you guys let me know, Sherrod, what have you thought of Tristan Thompson? I feel like he has come in and talked a lot. I know, I don't know how helpful it's going to be.
A loaded question. What do you think of Tristan Thompson?
But he comes in and then the guys are also, he is a champion. He's won championships. And so, and he's played on the biggest stages. And I think there's something to be said for that. And I think that players in the NBA notice that.
They do. They definitely notice that, but they also notice the role that you played in that championship squad. Whether you were the main attraction, whether you were the lead supporting actor, or whether you were someone who was behind the scenes making sure the curtains didn't fall down on the stars of the team. And I think he's a really solid behind the scenes type of guy, someone who's not going to be a front and center leader, but a guy that when you look at the pieces that you're trying to put together to win a championship, he plays a prominent role. You're talking about a guy who has been a double-double, who seems to be getting better. Free throw shooting, not his forte. Do not look for him to be that guy to seal it at the line down the stretch. But his activity around the glass when he's healthy, and that, as we're seeing right now, is an if, a big if you're the Boston Celtics. He's someone that can do certainly more to help you than hurt you when he's on the floor. But I think the Celtics, when I look at their roster from top to bottom, from a leadership standpoint, Abby, you're spot on. It has to be Marcus Smart. He's the longest tenured Celtics. He's the guy who has a clear strength on the floor that distinguishes him from every single player, not only on his roster, but arguably among most players in the NBA. And that is his ability to defend at an elite level over and over and over and over again. And the point that you made about Jaylen Brown, I was on a podcast with our good friend Cedric Maxwell, also part of the CLNS Media family, and we were talking about this very point. And the thing that I mentioned to Cedric is that, Jaylen, at this point, I'm a ride or die with Jaylen to the end, because there's nothing about him that makes me believe if he puts his mind to doing something, it's not going to get done. He specifically talked to us all about wanting to round out his game going forward. And when you look at where he was as a rookie and you look at where he's at now, every year he has significantly leveled up his overall play to the point where now, if he is an all-star this year, there would not be anyone in the world surprised about that because of the way he has leveled his game up year after year after year. And so I do believe those two guys have to be the front and center leaders, Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown. But that second tier to give them support in leadership, I think it has to be a Tristan Thompson because of the points that you brought up, Abby. And I think it has to be, Tatum, because Tatum, let's be real, he's going to be the best player. And if you're not part of that leadership team as the best player, your team's not going very far.
I like that idea, a leadership council.
So we talked about leadership, but what about the rookies? Who do you two think are emerging favorites out of this rookie squad?
Peyton Pritchard has to be the favorite, right? But I think that Aaron Nesmith is something that the Celtics sorely need in shot making. And if he can do it at an NBA level, I think that will be a huge boost for them, especially adding a little bit of depth on the wing. Peyton Pritchard was really exciting. I think in that first preseason game against the Sixers, seeing him stand up to that level of competition and not back down. And I think that's something that you hear from a lot of people who know him, is that he is fearless. He's not going to back down from anybody or anything. I do think that was a huge welcome to the NBA moment for both of them in the Nets game. One, KD just stepping up and hitting that three right in Pritchard's face. And then Nesmith got dunked on. Both of them, you could tell their heads were spinning in that second game. And why wouldn't they be? They didn't have the typical calendar. There was no summer league. There was no, month-long training camp to ramp up to these moments. And so I am interested to see how they bounce back, and that I am hopeful that they will be able to make an impact on this team.
I think by the time we get near the end of the season and going into the playoffs, I think Nesmith is going to be in that rotation. I think he's just too talented not to be. And frankly, this is a guy who, remember, he only played a handful of games at Vanderbilt. So it's not like he's got this wide playlist of playing that he can lean on as he enters this completely new and so much more challenging thing that we like to call the National Basketball Association. It's going to take him a little bit of time to get there. And I think the Celtics understand that. That's why they're not rushing. They're not pressing. And as far as Pritchard's concerned, I love what he brings to the game. But to me, he's like, he reminds me a lot of Matthew Dellavedova, who is just scrappy, can make some shots if you leave him open all day long. Is someone who is much better at playing off of others than they are necessarily playing their game per se. And again, I think he's going to be a solid player for the Celtics eventually. But if you're looking at where they are now and where they're going to be in the playoffs or going into the playoffs, Nesmith is going to be someone that I think has what I call Tyler Herro 2.0 potential. Someone who can have a certain level of play during a regular season, but when you get to the playoffs and the money's on the line, they take it to another level. I think he has that potential in him. Having worked with his head coach at Vanderbilt, Jerry Stackhouse, who is, there was not a shot that Jerry Stackhouse didn't like to take, regardless of what point in the game it was. I think we're going to see Nesmith over time really become more comfortable being that high volume shooter because he has that skill in him. And the Celtics, again, they're not pressed about what he's doing, in Thanksgiving and Christmas and even New Year's. They're more concerned about where is he going to be come playoff time. And I think he's going to be right where they need him to be to make an impact and be a difference maker.
My only counter to that, Sherrod, is that Tyler Herro had 4 months of a pandemic to sit there and work on his game. And so it was basically him coming back in his second season in a bubble where there were no fans cheering against him, not having to overcome any of those adverse conditions. And so I do think that it will be important for these rookies to step up in these situations. But I am not sure that for the Celtics and their championship aspirations, it would be a good thing if they need to count on one of these guys.
Yeah.
So I think Nesmith adds a layer and something that they probably didn't have last season. And if he can hit shots, but Sherrod, we've seen how hard that is to do. I was in the arena more than a year ago now, but last preseason when Carson Edwards hit 8 threes and we all thought he was going to be the next, Ray Allen. And so it's just, it's hard to do at this level and he's going to need to prove it.
This season is going to be unlike any season we've seen in a really long time because you're coming out of the pandemic, but you're not really out of the pandemic. And just what is that going to be like covering this team, in this kind of weird, hazy environment where we really don't know whether things are going to stop, whether things are going to accelerate. It just seems there's a lot of uncertainty. And as someone who's going to be around this team, at least virtually day in, day out, how do you kind of wrap yourself around that from a mental standpoint and not just lose your mind?
It's different. It's strange. It's weird. Not being at TD Garden for the preseason game against the Nets was the first time that's happened to me. I mean, I had maternity leaves, but that's the first time I've ever not been at a game that I could be at since I came to Boston. And that was weird. It's hard. It's strange. And Sherrod and Kwani, you guys can speak to this. Like you said, being around this team virtually every day. I'm used to being around this team inside the practice facility, listening to them in the scrums. I got to travel with the team. So, on the bus and seeing some of that. And it's very different. And so mentally, though, I will say we had practice with it in the bubble. And even then we were more separated from them, the fact that they were in Florida. And then all of us, I think it's just it's the new normal for everything. And so this is how it is. One positive about Zoom is that we can Zoom into any press conference. And so, for example, today I was thinking about Peyton Pritchard. We heard from him for the Celtics and I was like, well, when are the Blazers going to have their Zoom? I'm going to email them because Damian Lillard loves Peyton Pritchard and I would love to get his perspective on the rookie. And so that's something that's really cool that we typically don't get an opportunity to do. And so I think it opens up more possibilities. I do think it's you obviously have to be more creative, which Kwani, all about that. And so it's a different challenge. And as I'm going to take a note from Brad Stevens, you have to enjoy the challenge. I am excited about the challenge of these opportunities.
And be the best version of yourself, Abby. Don't forget, be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, improve every possession on its own. Yes, I live by those words.
Oh, I can't wait for the Brad Stevens book.
Abby, you talked a little bit about, obviously, the transition back to this new role. But for those who don't necessarily know your story, what was your journey into broadcasting like? This is long. That's the only reason we really want to know all this. I was in high school and I always liked journalism. I grew up, watching the Today Show, wanting to be Katie Couric. And I didn't think that would be a possibility until I had an English teacher. I read the announcements one day, I think. And she was like, hey, you should get into broadcasting. And I was like, what is that? I didn't know it was a thing.
So I went to college for broadcasting. And then when I was in college, I took a sports broadcasting class. I grew up loving sports. I played sports. I grew up in Denver. I was a huge Broncos fan. My sister played softball, and it was the inaugural season of the Rockies when we were there. It just happened, and we went to a ton of games, and it was just so fun. Those are some of my favorite memories. And then I also remember sitting like way up in the nosebleeds of Mile High Stadium when the Broncos and John Elway, and like sharing those memories with my dad. It's incredible. And so I took that sports broadcasting class, and then I realized, oh, you can just do sports. That's amazing. And so coming out of college, ESPN called me for a production assistant job at ESPN Classic. I had submitted a resume 2 years before that for just an internship. And I got in a sweet spot. They were looking for diverse candidates. And so being a woman and my last name is Chin, I got the call. And I said, I will be there tomorrow. Where is Connecticut? I don't know if I could have found, I grew up out west. I didn't know the Northeast. And it's so funny. Driving here, my mom, when we were moving to Connecticut, my mom and I, we stopped, I think we stopped like just outside of Connecticut, and it was kind of late. And we were like, let's stop here. We'll get there tomorrow with a fresh, and we drove the next morning, and it was like an hour away. We were like, what were we doing? Because Connecticut is so small. But anyway, I was behind the scenes at ESPN for 3 years. I did get to work in remote production eventually. So I worked on Monday Night Football, the X Games. I got to do some really cool stuff. The women's NCAA tournament. It's like the only champion that's crowned on ESPN. And so that was really cool. And then I decided I wanted to make the jump on air. And the only station that called me back from my tape was in Montgomery, Alabama. So I made the leap. I worked part-time, making $9.50 an hour, and I got laid off from that job about 3 months later. And so, but because of that experience, someone saw how hard I worked covering press conferences for Nick Saban in Alabama, and they gave me a shot in Birmingham. And so I got picked up in Birmingham, and then because of my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, but now husband, we moved to Seattle, Washington, and that's how I got in with the now NBC Sports Northwest. And that's when I started doing NBA, because the Portland Trailblazers are the only professional game in town. But at the time, I was doing mostly college football. The Pac-12 was huge, and that's what I had been covering in Alabama. So it was really cool. We had a 2-hour pregame show every Saturday, just like game day. And that was so fun with like 3 analysts. We had reporters everywhere. It was amazing. It was a really cool experience. And then Boston saw my work with the Blazers, and that's how I got here.
Wow.
Long story. Yeah.
No, it wasn't even that long. It was a good.
No, Kwani's stories are so much longer than that. That yours was just like absolute easy pass, easy lane.
That's why she's a broadcaster.
Exactly. Well, Abby, we're running low. We're running out of time, but I wanted to just get your take on this season. Again, not being unlike any we've seen without Tommy Heinsohn around, and just can you just share with us just some of your fondest memories of Tommy?
It's different. It feels different. Like I said, not being in the arena, but it just feels different not having Tommy around. And I will let you guys know something. Actually, my grandfather died today.
No.
Yes. So hastened by COVID. I feel really lucky because I mentioned that road trip. That was our first stop, was to see him. And so my kids got to hang out with him. Great Grandpa Wise, Dwight Wise. But he was headed downhill really since then. So it's not too surprising. But my point is, just thinking about that today and all of it, it really brought me back to, because when we were on the farm on that trip is when Tommy died. And so I remember sitting on the couch and, scrolling through my phone and seeing all these wonderful memories that people posted of Tommy. And I know that I only got a small slice of the Tommy Heinsohn who, went from the player to the coach. And I got to know him as a broadcaster. But my favorite thing about Tommy is, while he knows he will have forgotten way more basketball than I will ever know, is he never made me feel less than. And he never spoke down to me. He always made me feel like I was part of the team, and he made me feel like I was an important part of the team. And I'm always grateful for that. And you guys, we talked about at the beginning of all this, all the support that I've gotten from Celtics Nation. That wouldn't have been possible if Tommy and Mike Gorman hadn't welcomed me and lifted me up and put me in the position to be successful. And so I'm so grateful to them for that. And Tommy is just someone who, he's larger than life. And that's my greatest regret, is that I never got to go on the road with Tommy and see him just hold court in a restaurant for hours after a game. He was an incredible personality. I mean, I saw glimpses of it. I saw it, of course, Mike talks about it all the time in the media room before games and all of that. But he was just a wonderful, wonderful man. And I'm so lucky to have known him.
Yes, we all are. And for just having had the time we had with Tommy, who will never be forgotten, no question.
And then the point was with my grandfather, it was just, this year is just, I feel like, and the virus, it's just taking people, and it's relentless, and things are just different. I feel like whenever we do get out of this, the world is just going to be so changed, and we're just a small slice, and
we want to send our condolences to your family, obviously, as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, Abigail, I know you are an amazingly awesome and an amazingly busy woman. So we don't want to take up much more of your time. Enjoy the holidays. I know you've got an important date coming up the next couple of days right before Christmas. Our good friend Mabel.
Miss Mabel, yes. Mighty Mabel. Turning 5, the big 5.
Whoa.
Big girl Mabel.
I mean, she's basically an adult now.
Yeah. Probably has her own YouTube channel.
Right.
But don't give her a podcast. We don't want her. We don't need the competition. Well, Abby, it's always Abby's always good to talk with you, and know that you are always welcome on the AList Podcast anytime. Tell Mike and the girls I said hello, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you, guys. I'm excited for you. Good luck. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Well. Lots of good stuff there from Abby Chen. Kind of ended on a bit of a Debbie Downer note there about her grandfather. That was sad, but very timely. With us talking about Tommy. Mm-hmm. I'm happy for Abby. I really am. I didn't tell her this. Just because I don't know if she knew this or not, but like when those petitions were going around about bringing Abby back, I signed it.
Hey.
I did.
As you should have.
Yeah, I was just ecstatic that she's getting a second opportunity there, because I mean she's good, and I love the role that she's going to be asked to play, and I love the role that BetOnline.ag plays for us. They've been good to us, and I just want to make sure I give them a shout out, and also while I'm doing shout outs, I want to give a shout out to you, Miss Lunis, for some of the work that you've done on NBC 10, some of which I've added it to my content consumption list.
He actually watched it.
I actually watched it, and I really, the one interview, one that you've done recently that kind of jumped out at me is the Jackie Mack one.
Yeah.
She gave you, and really, I enjoyed her talking about the various mentorships that she has had, and also what got her started in the business.
Yes, I talked to her for my series 10 Questions with NBC 10 Boston. You can obviously catch it on our site at NBC10Boston.com. But it was very refreshing to hear her share her perspective of getting into the sports journalism field. And she started, I won't spoil it, but she saw a need and was willing to fill it. She saw that there weren't enough women or people covering a specific sport, and she was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And that led to her having a very successful career in the NBA, covering it, being a well-trusted source for a lot of players, coaches, front office personnel. So definitely check that out. It was very refreshing to hear. She also gives her season preview of what she thinks we should be following this NBA season.
Absolutely. Lots of good stuff there, no question about it. And speaking of good stuff, if you want to, Kwani, you've got some more good stuff you need to talk about, correct?
Yeah, so we have a podcast now, apparently. And I need you all to do this. When you're done with this episode, whether you're on Spotify or iTunes, I need to make sure that you subscribed. If you have time, give us a review. You can just click the 5 stars. That's all you have to do. You don't have to write anything. We're on YouTube as well. Tell your friends about it. Tell your mom about it. Tell your cousins about it. And that's all I want. That's all I want for Christmas is for you to subscribe.
Thank you. See, Kwani, and that's the gift that will keep on giving. Keep giving us those 5-star reviews. That's the gift that if you really want to make that gift to keep on giving to us, you can do that. Another good episode, Kwani. Hopefully we'll keep it going.
We got number 2 in the books.
2 down and a whole lot more to go.
And I still didn't tell you guys my middle name.
We gonna, you know what? I'm not gonna spoil it for them. I'm not going to. I'm not going to put you on blast. Although they're going to refer back once they find out, they will refer back to this episode.
They will.
They will look back at this episode, and be like, damn. Okay.
Yeah,
I get it.
Third time's a charm,
clue, y'all. We call that a clue.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the clock, and that's cluing me in that it's time for us to go.
It's time to go.
So, again, great show, Kwani, as always. Sherrod Blakely, Kwani Lunis. This is the A-List Podcast. As she mentioned, we are on all your podcasting apps. Subscribe, review, give us that 5-star rating, and we're good to go. Special shout out to betonline.ag, giving us the support that we need and want. Appreciate you as always. And that being said, this is the A-List Podcast. We are out. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.